Hello, and welcome to the final day and final session of Bloomreach's Product Week 2023. Today, I'm joined by Brian Walker, Chief Strategy Officer here at Bloomreach, and we're going to be talking about the state of e-commerce as it stands today. One thing to note about Brian, he's also the wonderful host of our Commerce Experience podcast, which after watching this, you should definitely check out. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well, and thank you all so much for sticking around through Product Week. I know this is our last session here. I hope you enjoy it.
Great. So to start off, I want you to recap how 2022 went for you in the lens of e-commerce. Could you put that year into context for us?
Well, what a difference a year makes. Heading into 2022, almost 90% of e-commerce business leaders were expecting significant growth in 2022. We were leaving kind of exiting the pandemic, if you will. I think we were all celebrating that and looking forward to kind of continued, business as usual and strong economic environment. But of course, that isn't what happened. And clearly the war in Ukraine, and for those of you impacted, all of our hearts go out to you, whether it's you or your friends or extended family. That precipitated a whole host of ramifications. Clearly, inflation was already, posing a little bit of a challenge, but clearly the war really took that to the next level. The rising energy prices, commodity prices, a whole host of things really drove inflation, as well as ongoing supply chain challenges. So the year really pivoted really in the spring, and as a result, consumer confidence really took a tumble. And clearly that had a pretty dramatic impact on retail and e-commerce as a whole. So instead of seeing, over 90% of businesses see significant growth, we saw roughly a third of businesses see flat to down. We saw about a third between 0 and 10%, and a third north of that. So a pretty dramatic shift from what we were anticipating, and perhaps for your business, it may have been seen as a bit of a disappointing year in terms of online commerce. And of course, there's a whole host of factors there. But it's important to recognize that the results, in fact, are pretty lumpy. Now, on the macro, our Commerce Pulse reporting from Bloomreach, and I encourage you to check that out if you haven't before. It's something we do on a quarterly basis. We looked at overall 2022 results, and in North America, it was essentially on the macro flat at up only 0.3%. And in Europe and the UK, down 7%. And it's important to realize those numbers are not actually even inflation adjusted. So if you start adjusting for inflation, it was a challenging year overall. But if you look into the specific segments, there were some winners and then there were some losers. And the winners would include luxury, which for the year was up almost 40% year over year. Apparel up in kind of high single digits. Grocery holding its own even after significant pandemic growth. So online grocery really held its own. And even home furnishings really held its own last year, up modestly year over year. But certain categories like general merchandise or home improvement saw declines in sales online, even though traffic held relatively strong, which points to kind of omni-channel type behaviors as the pandemic eased. And then finally, just to mention, B2B had a very strong year as well. So again, very lumpy in terms of specific results, and many of you watching may have had a very good year, and some of you watching may not have, and the numbers certainly reflect that.
That's interesting. Given the lumpiness, as you call it, of 2022, what's your outlook for the next year, for 2023? What can we expect?
Yeah, I mean, most people are really, taking a fairly conservative view in terms of 2023. Roughly 2/3 of economists are expecting some form of recession in the U.S. market, and perhaps even somewhat more in the UK and in Europe, based on the challenges around interest rates, mortgage rates, and other factors. And it was, of course, a challenging 2022, as I said, and many of those conditions remain, unfortunately, as we head into next year. Maybe on the good news front, some of the inventory challenges that a lot of retailers and brands kind of faced, kind of the flip of what we saw earlier in the pandemic, over-inventoried in 2022. Hopefully you're exiting the holidays in reasonably good shape. But as you plan for 2023, most are being fairly conservative in terms of their sales expectations. And it's important to realize that that has a trickle-on effect. So certainly I expect large investments, large projects to be less likely to go forward and be approved. We saw that, for example, in some recent data we got back from Commerce Next around investment priorities and themes for 2023. I'd encourage you to check that out as well. Only 14%, for example, of e-commerce business leaders are expecting to invest in their commerce platform. But there are areas that will see significant investment, and that really resonates in that data. And personalization and optimization is at the top. 58% of e-commerce business leaders and digital marketing leaders will be investing in personalization and optimization, meaning getting more out of the traffic and customer base they already have. Mobile optimization is also a key priority, as are site redesign and product discovery. So, it sounds self-serving for me to talk about that, since Bloomreach obviously has a role to play in those areas, but that is at the top. On the marketing front, we see that last year, we really saw a pretty dramatic shift from a focus on acquisition marketing to a focus on retention marketing. And so when we talk about that, right, it's a shift from social media marketing and search marketing primarily, maybe some display in the mix, to a focus on your existing customer file and getting more out of that, being more performant with it, focusing on optimization and relevance in your communication, and driving conversion rates. And of course, email is still the big driver. 87% of digital marketers are going to be focusing on email as their primary growth driver in terms of the business in 2023. Kind of interesting to see it so high. Yes, text messaging, SMS is key. About 2/3 are counting on SMS to be a key driver as well. So clearly an important channel. But focusing on retention also translates into other areas, like a renewed focus on loyalty programs, and we may be reinventing and kind of remodeling loyalty programs. Hopefully we are. They could use a bit of a refresh, if I'm honest. So we'll see areas like that really become the primary focus. The losers, well, social media marketing had a rough 2022. About 2/3 of retailers saw a decline in their social media KPIs in 2022, and that's going to translate into what they plan to do in 2023 with about the same number, about 2/3, for example, planning to reduce spend on social media marketing and specifically Meta with Facebook and Instagram. They're going to increase some on TikTok. They see that as, of course, a promising channel, an interesting channel, but not yet able to replace the traffic, and certainly not replace it in an efficient way. And clearly social media marketing was impacted, as display marketing was as well, by changes in consumer privacy, both from a regulatory perspective and Apple iOS, but that's going to persist into 2023 as well. So again, personalization and optimization and retention marketing, those definitely bubble to the top in terms of priorities moving forward, and I think we can expect to see most digital marketers and online business leaders focusing in those areas.
That's interesting. Across the data you've seen, across the anecdotal evidence you've seen, what are the trends that stick out that marketers and merchandisers and e-commerce professionals should invest in more in 2023?
Yeah, again, I think it's kind of, in a sense, getting back to first principles and getting back to basics in a way, focusing on your existing customer base and doing a better job with segmentation and personalization to reactivate that customer file and get them to purchase again within, let's say, the given year. And that, of course, is the most economically efficient marketing spend that you can make. So clearly, that's part of the reason why people are focusing on that. But it's also, frankly, just kind of good business. It's just a smart thing to do. So clearly, that trend, which we've already seen kind of beginning, as I shared earlier, is going to be a key focus. I mentioned loyalty as well. And I guess one other area that I think is clearly a huge theme heading into 2023, I'm sure many of you are thinking about it, hearing about it, and that's generative AI, ChatGPT, DALL-E, etc. These are tools that I expect marketers and merchandisers will be exploring Today, they're not really ready for prime time in many respects, and productizing around that for companies like Bloomreach, like we're still fairly early in that journey. I think like a lot of our competitors, but I think, we'll see a lot of interest and exploration in that key area, and it does show a lot of really interesting promise, which is why here at Bloomreach we're focusing quite a bit on how that can help scale out content and personalization across your marketing and across your site experience. So that's clearly a key theme. Maybe you could say generative AI is this year's metaverse or this year's crypto, but I actually think there's a lot more practical application for it in terms of the work that you're doing every day, and you and your teams, and ways it can impact things you're trying to accomplish than even those other things that I mentioned. So I think that's clearly a key theme heading into this year. I think we'll be talking about it, hearing about it quite a lot, and clearly a space to watch. If you're interested in exploring that or getting more thinking on that, or just talking with someone who's been looking into it, reach out. I'd be happy to talk with you more about that.
Brian, that's great. I learned something new during this session. And it begs the question, as we talk more about these AI-heavy systems, reliability is going to be key in the performance of marketers as they're using these more and more, whether it be Bloomreach or GPT or what have you. And I think a great person to talk about this is our Chief Marketing Officer, Amanda. And so I'm going to throw it over to her.
It's great to have a first-hand look using Bloomreach data on what's happening in the market. And we hope that personalization and good product discovery will help our customers navigate what will certainly be an interesting 2023. For a few minutes, I'd like to revisit some of the numbers that Anirban shared earlier this week and comment on exactly what we're doing from a support and customer success perspective to help our customers be ready for 2023 and navigate the challenges we're all going to face together. There are a few reasons for ending Product Week on this note. First, we want you to have a feeling as you end these sessions that you're in good hands. Second, we want you to walk away from this week feeling like Bloomreach can be not just a vendor for you, but a strategic partner dedicated to your success. So let's look back at the slide Anirban shared around the Cyber Week numbers. I'd like to comment on them again because these are really incredible numbers that we saw in just 1 week. E-commerce has been on a tear the last few years, and Bloomreach has been there to help accelerate it along with you, our customers. We power over 400 billion in digital commerce experiences, which, to put that scale in context, represents roughly 25% of all retail e-commerce in the US and UK. We had an amazing holiday season as well and wanted to share those numbers with you. The most important thing, of course, is uptime, and Bloomreach had a fantastic holiday with 100% uptime, best in the industry, making sure that when your customers needed you, we were right there to support you. In discovery, we powered 300 million searches and 1.2 billion events on things like recommendations and category page browse journeys. That's processing the equivalent of 6,000 queries per second. What that means is that no matter what size you are, your stability and performance are in good hands with Bloomreach. And our engagement product had a record-setting quarter with 331 million email campaigns sent, 3.8 million SMS messages sent, and 306 million retargeting ads. And you all know that these are no batch and blast communications. These are personalized one-to-one emails and messages with privacy at the heart of every single one. Content had an equally impressive week as the backbone powering entire websites and applications. In just Cyber Week alone, 19 million page views with a 100% uptime maintained. To give you an idea of what this really means, we had a retail customer who did over 500,000 in 1 minute. Let that number sink in. And we did this with 100% uptime. So let's talk about why this really matters. I think more important than the numbers themselves are the things we are doing to support you as our customers and help you drive these numbers even higher. So I'd like to focus on the 3 things we're doing in support and the 3 things we're doing from a customer success perspective to help you succeed. First, with support, we take responsiveness very seriously. We have very high expectations for our responsiveness from our teams, and every issue during holiday is treated as priority number 1. Second, we hold holiday preparedness calls to help understand all aspects of your anticipated traffic, do load testing, and are on call when you have your biggest sales. These are the types of things that lead to our third point, best CSAT across all products in the industry. We're so proud of these numbers because it shows that you've trusted us in the last year with your most important events. From a customer success standpoint, we were really pleased this last year to hear many Fortune 500 customers like Next, Neiman Marcus, and Gap describe our services team as essential partners. This is a high bar, and we accomplish this by focusing on a few things. First, our service offerings are backed by Bloomreachers with industry knowledge. These are people with years of industry experience, agency experience, coming from well-known companies like Lululemon, Ralph Lauren, Whirlpool, KitchenAid, and Home Depot. Some of the services they provide include strategic site reviews, seasonal prep services, and benchmark services, as well as an optimizations team to bring insights and be an extension of your team. Then we have Community and Academy. If you haven't participated in the best practices webinars, virtual meetups, or Slack communities for marketers and merchandisers, we certainly encourage you to get involved. We work extremely hard to provide you with a best-in-class way to learn our tools and have had over 1,100 people in just the last few years take a course. And if you haven't taken an advanced course from Academy, we definitely recommend it. And last but not least, our partners. I'll reiterate what has been said many times during Product Week. We are tripling down on our partners this year. Anirban went through the numbers here, but I just want to say them again on the call, that we could not be successful without our partners. To our customers, I encourage you to work with your customer success team when you have needs outside of the product itself to leverage this great network of optimization experts and performance marketing experts and builders of digital experiences. Have them be an extension of your team, just like Bloomreach is. With that, I want to thank you for trusting us with your business, and I'll hand the mic back to Brian to wrap up Product Week.
Thank you, Amanda, and welcome back. Brian, before we close out Product Week 2023 in this session, I'd love to get your thoughts on how this week went and what we can expect to see from you in the future.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you all for being here with us here online. I hope you got a lot out of listening to all the presentations on where we're taking the product, customer case studies and stories, hearing from Raj, hearing from Anirban and Amanda and the product and engineering organizations and all the things that we're proud of. We're thankful, though, for your business and we take it very seriously, the solutions that we enable and empower for you. So anyway, thank you so much for that. As we sign off, I'd love to just reiterate, check out the podcast that Megan mentioned at the top. We bring on a lot of great guests. If you are interested in being on the podcast or there's someone you'd like for us to bring on from your organization or elsewhere, reach out. I'd love to hear from you about that. And check out Commerce Pulse. It's a great opportunity for you to benchmark your results on a quarterly basis, see where your business is at relative to your peer group out there in the market. So again, thank you so much for being here. Be well, and thank you.
Thank you all.